Thank you for joining us at New Day Fellowship Church, growing church, new vision for a multicultural generation. We thank you for tuning in this evening, and we know that you could be doing other things, but however you choose to come in and listen to what we have here to say. And, this is a Christian show, so what we do is talk about Christianity. We talk about the upbringing of how people was raised up, and not only that, but how they still instill that richness still inside their system. Today I have Dr. Thomas Russell Jones. He is one of the parishioners here, and not only that, but he's a lot of different things here at the church. And not only that, but he is definitely a man of God. And not only that, like I say, he holds a physician, MD, and then he holds a doctorate in divinity or biblical studies, either or. So he is a double doctorate here at this church now and there, but he through abroad. So Dr. Russell, tell us a little bit about yourself, then we'll get into the gist of the information that you have for us today.
Well, you've kind of introduced. I went to high school in a small town, Sterling City.
Where is that?
Near San Angelo.
Okay.
About 43 miles from San Angelo.
Okay.
Graduating class of 22 people.
Wow, that's large.
Went to Angelo State University for pre-med. I was a chemistry major, and then I went to University of Texas in Houston for med school. 4 years there, and then 3 years in Pennsylvania for an emergency medicine residency, and then Truett Seminary. I was a long-term student. I think I started in '99 and finished in 2006, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Took me a while.
Well, that's good. At least you finished. That's how. It's not how you start; it's how you finish. So you finish real well. And you have a genius mind, I would say, because you always talk about interventions, and you always talking about doing things, and you don't only talk about it, but you actually do it. Because I've been out to your lovely place, and I mean it is awesome, and a lot of stuff that you did yourself, you and Abby and Rory, and so some different things that you have done and just intrigued me. And last time we was out there, about 3 weeks ago, I mean you cooked pancakes for us, and not only that, pancakes and bacon. So we had a good time out there, and it was so peaceful and quiet, guys. It's out there in the woods. I mean, it's real quiet. You can hear all the different sounds of the crickets and everything. I mean, it is fantastic. And if you want to go somewhere just to relax, and you can hear the voice of God and all of that, but you almost can hear God breathing. It's so good out there. I just get so excited of going out there. Make sure you got gas in your car now, right? Because it's going to be a while before you get there. But other than that, it's a good place to go. And make sure you drive a truck or a Jeep. And so that's the second thing that you need. Don't just drive a car out there, but drive something that could go over the rocks and grain and everything. Because this man, he know how to be hospitable to the people that comes out there. So it's almost like his man cave, huge man cave, and not only that, but he has built I wouldn't say a shed. What is that called?
A barn.
A barn, but it's one of those James Bond barn. It's unique. It's not just a regular barn with just a bunch of hay in there, but there's a barn with everything. You've got lights and trinkets and everything that you can almost name inside that barn. So, Dr. Russell,
you're saying I'm a hoarder and I've got a bunch of old
stuff.
No.
Well, put it this way. It's nice stuff, and it's all spread out. It's not all just one big pile. That's a hoarder. But, it's not. That's not it. Now, Dr. Russell, tell us how you became a Christian in the Lord. I know you went way back in the day, and I had one gentleman came in there. He told me that he remembered he was 7 years old when he gave his life to the Lord. So, just tell us about that.
Well, actually, I was 7 too.
Wow, something about that 7, huh?
Magic 7, lucky number 7, whatever. I think it's hard to tell your own story without telling the story of some of the people that got you where you were.
We got time.
And for me, My mother was a Christian, and I had her influence, and I think that was a strong one. And my father had a lot of different jobs. My mother actually had been divorced and then remarried my father. Her first husband was an alcoholic, a lot of problems. But anyway, she married my father. I remember some of the different jobs he had. He worked for the local butcher at the grocery store. He worked in offshore drilling. A lot of different kind of, just that, whatever he could get a job, and that's kind of the stuff he did. He was part of this. He was in Louisiana and working on an offshore rig, and I never really ask a lot of questions. It's kind of vague, but when I was 5, he drowned. He was late for work or something, got into a boat to go to the rig, and it sunk, and he drowned. Though they said he was a good swimmer,
So sorry.
and that sort of deal, but it's the ocean. And so he drowned when I was 5, and I remember a few things about him. One thing that I do remember is that he was the local church's choir leader or song leader. And so I remember as a child hear him sing, but music was just a part of him. So it wasn't, just that he sang in church, but that he sang with his guitar at home. And there are songs that he would sing that most people are not old enough to even remember. But one of my favorites was, it's a Buck Owens song, "Tiger by the Tail." I've got a tiger by the tail, it's plain to see. I won't be much when you get through with me. I'm losing weight and I'm getting mighty pale. Looks like I got a tiger by the tail. And so I remember him singing some of those songs, but I remember him singing in church. I remember sitting in the pews and seeing him sing. And so there's been kind of a musical connection in my world, I think. The only other thing I really kind of think I remember him is that we at some point went to Galveston, and he had an old light blue Dodge pickup, and we fed seagulls salt, probably Ritz crackers or something. We were throwing crackers to the seagulls.
Not Alka-Seltzer, right?
Not Alka-Seltzer.
Okay.
No, we weren't hurting the seagulls. We were feeding them. And like I said, I have memories of that. But when you're 5, I don't know how much. But that's really kind of the main things I really remember. I don't remember a lot more. I don't. I just don't. I don't really. And then, he drowned when I was 5, and so life was a little, chaotic at the time. My mom was a school teacher, so she had a job, and I know young people listening to this may not really understand, but at the time, her first car she bought, it had to go under my grandfather's name. Because she couldn't own the car, even though it was her money and everything else, and she was making the payments. It had to be under my grandfather's name. And actually, my grandfather was a pretty big influence on my world, too. And he's one of those quiet, deep Christians. You didn't hear him talk a lot, but you knew he prayed pretty hard. And you knew that biblical principles and things like that came out of him all the time. I remember things like we'd be at Thanksgiving, and he'd bring somebody to Thanksgiving lunch that we had never met, and nobody in the family knew. And he just met that guy the day, and he said he's a little down on his luck, and I thought I'd bring him to lunch. And so you're like, okay. And we knew to accept that, and we knew that he was that kind of guy. So, moving forward, I remember Vacation Bible School when I was 7, and had some great people that were doing the Vacation Bible School, and it just kind of clicked with me, and they had a contest of, can you name all 12 disciples? And they had a keychain that they were giving out at the end of the week, for the person who could do it. And I don't know what would happen if they had ties or what. I don't know how this whole thing worked, but I want it. I mean, I devoted the week to try to remember all 12 disciples. To this day, I don't know if I could do it.
Got a keychain.
Maybe, yeah. But it was enough bait that I got after it. But at the same time, it's just like things kind of started clicking with me, and mentally it started fitting, and I started to ask my mom, and we started, she started answering questions and praying with me. And my dad had a New Testament, a little one, one of those Gideon red ones. And it had the plan of salvation that you turn to page such and such, and it, Romans 5:8, and turn to page such and such. And he basically not turned to this verse, but turned to this page. Because most people who are not used to a Bible don't know that where these books are, etc. Right. And so I think it's one way that Christians are kind of like, oh, well, turn to this. His was just down to earth, turn to this page. And it's very special. And I think that kind of cemented it. And I was in church, and they had, altar call, and I just had this compelling feeling that this is the decision I have to make, and this is the day I have to do it. And I've never looked back.
Wow.
And it, being a school kid, it doesn't come with it. I mean, it comes with its own challenges and everything, but I just kind of had, I knew the direction that I was going to take, and the direction was God. And wouldn't do it any other way.
So you started at a young age.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, you was getting still, going to Sunday school and going to church right after that, and then, working the principles and everything, and it just all just came together as one.
Yeah, I wouldn't proclaim that I was, the model child or the model student. I mean, I spent my fair time in the principal's office and, those kind of deals, and enough mischief that anybody could name, but I never really directed in mischief in a way to actually really hurt somebody, that kind of thing. Yeah. But we were always up to something.
Growing pains,
I don't know. I'm blessed my mom's, I don't know how she survived me.
Through the grace of God.
Through the grace of God. Because I look back, and I was one of those kids that I know was a handful.
Yeah.
I always had questions, always into stuff. One thing that was kind of cool for my world, that when she got married to my stepfather, he was a civil engineer. And they had, talking about barns, there was an old wooden barn, and there was a metal building. And before he met her, he decided he wanted to build his own bomb shelter. And so we always had concrete laying around, and we always had, tools and all kinds of stuff. And so I had an older brother, 6 years older, and we got into all kinds of stuff. It's a lucky I still have fingers, that I didn't blow anything off, and we did all kinds of stuff. I mean, I still think back about we had China berries, and they had this piece of pipe, and they drilled the end out of it. You put a firecracker in there, screw it down, put a China berry in the front, and you had a little cannon. We shot all kinds of stuff.
Don't try this at home, everybody, okay? Just leave it to the professional now. I like it how, Dr. Russell, I watch you not from afar off, but close, and I see you always doing something. It's like you're not a person that's like you just sit back and just watch television. You're a person that like to be inventive of some things. We talked about they have a new channel, TV channel coming on. I said, have you ever thought about going on that show and telling them things, what to do and all this and stuff? But I see you as you're back in the day, they would call us problem child, but now their children are called inquisitive. So we use the word inquisitive. So the idea is, I see you as a person that, like you can't sit still, and not like you're antsy, but you always your mind is working, and it's always for the good, it's not for the bad. And and I listen to a lot of your sermons that you come up with, and not only that, you've been to Israel and so many different times, and you've been overseas, and you brought back some artifacts you've been to Africa, and so I mean, you brought some things back and all of that, but you still know the story behind it, and how you can, I mean, guys, if you don't know this guy, he draw you in. Some people are just people like, yeah, okay, but when he talking, and he make it like you actually there at the present time. So he has that kind of pulling that he does on you, and he make you want to learn. Not only make you want to learn, but gives you a desire to live right before the Lord. So that's why I called him in here. When I called him and asked him was he interested in coming, and he said, well, you don't want me. And then I said, well, if I didn't want you, I never would have called you. He said, well, you're right about that, because he has a story to tell. Not only that, but the sincerity. And sometimes it's hard to find a MD that's a Christian. Some people say that they are, but he demonstrates that that he is. The Bible says, "Let your light shine before men," and so he lets his light shine. Knowing that, but I get excited about him. He don't know it now. I'm not. He's not my hero now. Okay, but I get excited about listening to him and talking to him. And last time we was out there, we went to go. He has an ATV, and he had what else you have out there? ATV and and a four-wheeler. And so me and Carl Garrett was in the four-wheeler, and he was on ATV, and he's got 60 acres of land out there, so he went way out in the middle of nowhere, and we was all strapped because we went to go shoot our guns. And he has this thing called a musket gun back in the day, and so we didn't have the musket itself, the balls itself, but what we had was some toilet paper. And I remember he put the gunpowder in there and stuffed it down, and put some more gunpowder in there and stuffed it down. And next he let me shoot it. And I was like, man, this is my first time ever shooting a musket gun. And so if you ever shoot a shot of musket gun, you got the little powder that pops up, poof. And I mean, it was so unique and just so exciting just to do that. Then he let me, I guess he made me feel comfortable because he let me shoot a shotgun. I only shot it one time now, because like they took my shoulder off, and I was real still to it. I mean, I was geared up. But let me tell you, before that happened, many months ago, he let me shoot another shotgun, and I was so excited because it was called skiing. Skeet? Yeah, skeet. And I was so excited. I said, man, I shot a shotgun. He said, yeah, that's Abby's shotgun. I said, oh man, you let me shoot, but it still had a lot of firepower behind it. Because his son and daughter, they is intrigued just like he is. So I like that about you. You're open to to help people out.
But
also,
see, I still think it's funny. It was Abby's gun, and no, it's not a large caliber. I mean, it's a 28 gauge, not a 20 gauge or 12 gauge, or they even make a 10 gauge. That'll knock your arm off. But it was not about that. I was just letting you know that that's Abby's, but it wasn't about the gauge, because there are guys that really like to shoot, and they shoot a lot. And you shoot enough 12 gauge, and your shoulder's going to pay for it. You shoot 28, and you can shoot all day long. And so that's more of the deal of that. It's not a testosterone thing. It's just that's I mean, because I know, in fact, I've got a friend who died this past year. He didn't die from COVID or anything, but he died this past year, and he and another doctor that I knew, they were both doctors, but they both shot 28s. And the guy that I'm talking about, he was 6'6", 260, 270 pounds, maybe even more. He played basketball for TCU. And he shot 28 gauge, just like I had you shooting. And so didn't bother him about his testosterone.
And not knowing that Dr. Russell, he's a hunter. And I think it was a year and a half ago, he went to go shoot a bear. Now, like, well, you go by yourself then. It ain't going to happen over here. If I want to shoot a bear, I'm going to be it's going to be many miles away. But the idea is he went to, what state was that?
Idaho.
Tell us about that story. Carl, I love that.
Well, we went up there the year before, and I found out that about we were up there for just vacation, but I found out about we were getting ready for bow season here, and so I took my bow with me, and I was trying to find places to shoot, and that was before I realized that a lot of Idaho is wide enough that you can just pull over the side of the road, nobody will really care. If you got a target, just go for it. But I didn't know that, so I'm kind of looking ahead and thinking, well, how am I going to practice? And because you like to get in practice for bow season, and it was for like the first weekend of September, second week of September, something like that. First week maybe. That's second. Starts the 7th through something. But anyway, and so while I was up there, I started calling around trying to find somebody's place or whatever. And as is true in a lot of the part of the world, everybody's, their liability and stuff like that. And so I did find one, he's an outfitter and everything else, said, yeah, you can come over and shoot at my place. No, I don't have a target range. But basically I was shooting like in his front yard. I mean, he has this area and I could just go up and bring my bow and I had my own target and shoot. And I think another thing about, archery is just that I like just shooting my bow because it kind of clears my head, because you gotta focus on the parts. It's like anything else. It's like, swinging a golf club or something else. You got to kind of focus on getting all the pieces together to do it right. And it's a great deal of satisfaction, to hit what you're aiming at and whatever. And then hunting kind of takes it, a notch up. But I got to meet those guys the year before. And then I had a year to plan ahead. And fortunately, Cheryl has an uncle. She told me not to get him involved, but I talked to him, and so I mailed him a lot of my gear and stuff. And I think it's fun. He's disabled, but I think he was as pumped up about me hunting as I was. It was amazing. And so I stopped to see him both ways, coming and going, because I'd mailed stuff to him, and then I'd pick it up from him so I didn't have to fly it. And then I dropped stuff off with him. Like, I was there for a week, so I bought groceries for the week and everything else. And when I get ready to leave, there's, maybe I got leftover peanut butter or whatever, and it's silly to try to take that on a plane or whatever they'll do. And so I dropped off leftover food stuff with him, but he wanted to hear all about it and everything else. It's just a blast. But Cheryl's uncle, we go way back. He's the one that taught me how to fly fish and gave me my first fly fishing rod and everything else. And it's just that's a real kick to be able to tie something that out of whatever you can get a hold of and make a fly that a fish thinks is a bug, and have them eat it, and have them take it, and then catch them. And that's I've heard an entire sermon about how that fishermen are evil and deceivers and cheats because they're trying to fool the fish into, they're not really giving real food. They're liars. And so the disciples may have been a little shady. There was all this funny stuff. Great sermon, but any fisherman will know that. Well, it's it's just trying to get the right response from the fish so they bite.
And so you got your fish. I mean, you got your bear.
Yeah.
And tell us about the bear. I love how you said that the tracker was saying it may be up in the maybe.
Yeah. So they, we would hunt from chairs, and so he'd put you up in this chair, and then he'd leave you a radio, and you just turn it off, and then turn it on if you needed him, or you just wait until dark, and he comes out and picks you up. And the first day I was out there, and I saw a bear, but it was a little one, and it came like underneath me and just kind of walked by, and he's too little to shoot and that kind of stuff. But the thing that really amazed me is how quiet, because I've been that close to deer and other animals, but deer have hooves, and so they hit rocks and stuff, and they step on branches and leaves, and you can hear them. But this little bear, it's like their pads of their feet are so quiet you couldn't hear him go by. And I'm literally, holding my breath, trying to hear him, just looking at him and going, wow. And he just went right by. But it kind of prepared me that you may not hear these things, And so the next afternoon I was out there, and I was looking, and I saw some movement. It was pretty good ways off, but when it happened, I thought, something moving, maybe a bear. And so basically I stood up and I got ready. You've got a harness, and so you want to make sure it's the right length. And so you kind of get into your harness because you want to be able to let the harness hold you so that way you kind of know where you are. So you got your feet are fixed and then the harness, and so you got 3 points that kind of say this is where you are. And I already got knocked on my arrow and ready to go, and it was the bear, and he came in, and so then all I had to wait for time for the shot, make sure that you got to get where their head's not looking at you, they don't see you, so you don't spook them, and draw and shoot. And I was a little bit further back than I wanted to be, but believe me, there's a huge adrenaline rush. You try to calm down, you do all that stuff, but you think you're going to do everything right, and I got him, but I didn't know for sure. At this time, you let your arrow go, and he took off and sounded like a bulldozer going through the brush, except for the no motor noise, just the. And they say bears will make a death groan or something. I didn't hear any of that, so I radioed the guide and waited. And you want to wait a while and everything anyway. And so he shows up, and we're kind of looking, and we're walking, following the blood trail, and we found broken arrow. And at one point, we came up to a tree that had a little blood at the bottom, and he looks up, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, that's right, they do climb trees. And so here I am. He has a handgun. I have my bow, and I'm carrying an arrow because it's so thick I couldn't keep it even on the string. I mean, we're crawling through this stuff because he just made a hole through it. And you don't want to be surprised by this bear.
Right.
But it was so weird because I was like, it wasn't that I had to worry about all of this because I was definitely looking this way and this way. But then it's like, oh no, look up too, because one of the things that the mamas teach the cubs is to go up into trees. If there's a threat, they teach them to run up in trees. And so if this bear kind of did an instinctual thing, that was injured and could have gone up the tree, but he wasn't. He, another, 15, 20 yards we found him. He went pretty fast. And I think I figured out, based on the distance that he covered, because they run about 30 miles an hour.
Wow.
Through closed brush, a grizzly can overtake a horse. Don't think because you're on a horse you're going to outrun a grizzly. Grizzlies are incredibly fast, but they know they can run at least 30, no big deal, through brush and everything else. And so I figured out how far he went from where he was, and I think he survived for about 3.6 seconds or something. So it was pretty quick.
Wow. What size was he? Was pretty good size?
His head's about this big. You've seen it.
Bigger than mine.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. His. Yeah.
Some people say
paws are
jury's
about
still
like
out
that.
on that one.
Yeah, but I tell you, the thing that just amazed me was the amount of muscle. Just the amount of muscle. I got the skull back too, but all the muscle that was on the skull. If you look at the back straps of a deer, you're looking at a piece of meat that maybe's like this. A bear's is like this.
Wow. They're
just tremendously powerful. And they've got a great sense of smell. They smell at least as good or better maybe as a dog. So they've got a great sense of smell. Their eyesight is pretty good, but that's the one weak area they have is it's not wonderful. Their smell's good, their hearing's good, and they're fast and they're strong. But yeah, they're incredible.
Wow. I like how you talk about it, and you have a lovely wife named Cheryl, and she allow you just be you. And how many years have y'all been married? And tell us a little bit about.
We got married we got married in 1984. We got married the day after we graduated from college.
Wow.
But the thing about Cheryl that at one point she had me do a personality inventory. And I was like, I didn't really want to do this, whatever. But I think the interesting thing is the person that was doing the inventory said that I need time to be able to, to get out, to get away, to retreat, whatever. And there are different personality types, different people. I mean, some people like to talk through everything, and so they need time with other people. But she said, basically, I'm one of these people that need time with myself because the conversation's going to go with me internally about the things. And so yeah, there's some of that, and so I need some time to kind of sort through, and it keeps me from just going bonkers.
Right.
I remember at times Houston was kind of a little tough because it's harder to get away, But even in Houston, I found ways to kind of do that. But yeah, I need my outdoors. And she thought that this lady also thought that was kind of interesting to be a doctor and have a need for the outdoors. I mean, she said in my personality inventory, I should be someone who's like I should be a forest ranger, I should be a policeman, I should be a social worker, I should be a chaplain. She had this list of all these, firemen maybe, or all this kind of stuff. But physician wasn't high on the list with this kind of stuff. And so she started asking me about what I do for a living and everything else. And at the end, she goes, "You probably really enjoy what you do." And I said, "Yes, I do." And what I had to kind of explain to her is that working in the emergency department, it is like being, a policeman or a social worker or a chaplain. I mean, we have to know what the law is with respect to, when people come in, what's going on, because they may be afraid that we can call the police on them and stuff like that. And no, we provide medical care. And so there have been times when we have to tell the police, no, you can't do this, that you can't do what you think you can do, because the law won't let you do that. And so I'm going to stand for their rights, which means that I do not have to tell you anything, et cetera, and whatever. And so there's some aspects of being a social worker, being a chaplain, being a whatever, that still go into this whole process.
That's awesome, though. I mean, the guys let you know that this is my personal physician. Whenever I have something wrong with me, I call him.
But I'm not your doctor. You got a doctor.
You're right. But I called him first. I called him, then I called the other doctor. But I called him first because I could get to him with no problem. My other doctor probably got about 5 pagers and 6 cell phones. But him, I know him personally. And he said, "Well,
yeah, just look at Beeman and turn it off." I'll call him back tomorrow.
Yeah, y'all hear this, people? Boy, see, you put him on there.
Can't get no respect. Rodney Dangerfield can't get no respect.
That's awesome. So, okay, you have, how many children do you have?
2.
2 children.
One boy, one girl.
Okay. And they're very energetic. I know they're out of the house now, and they already graduated from college, and one's already married.
Yep.
And the other one will be sometime, whenever if it happens.
It's like you say, when God finds the right one for her.
Right.
And if it doesn't happen, that's fine too. I'm totally happy if she's happy. She's happy with who she is in her skin, and I'm cool with that too.
He's a cool dad, everybody. He's a cool dad. And a Christian at the same time.
The dumbest thing I can do is force her into something that's bad.
Yeah.
And so it's whatever God has in store for her.
Yes. And Dr. Russell, he's everywhere. One time I called him, he was at a football game over his brother-in-law's place, and that was, for South or for whatever, or I mean, he's everywhere. And I'm like, man, how you do that? Then go to work the next day and everything. But, he scheduled himself out and all this other stuff. So that tell you that you could be energetic, exciting, and a Christian at the same time. Some people say, well, I can't do all this stuff. Well, if you choose to, you can do it. If you're called to do that, just do that. Christianity is very important in this lifestyle because God is calling us to live a wholesome life. And not only that, but the Bible says, give you life and life more abundantly. And that doesn't mean you just go to work, church, home, work, church, home, work, church, home. But you could go out and be adventurous at the same time. With the bow and arrow, did a bear and cut the little heart out, cut the heart out of the bear. He showed me a picture of it. I said, man, you could have cut the heart out of a deer. All I know, I can tell the difference. But he showed me a picture of that. He showed me a picture of the bear, the bow and arrow, and all this good stuff. So he's a regular MD Daniel Boone. So I'm still call you Daniel Boone because I mean he's adventurous, and then also he like to invent things. So in other words, I call him a MacGyver also. Remember how MacGyver would take a match and some thread and make a gun out of it or whatever. Just something adventurous. So he does a lot of different things to keep him level, and that doesn't mean that he'll go wacky. But it keep him level in what he's doing. So you're a very intriguing young man, and not only that, but a godly man at the same time. So and you do all those traits. Now my question is, how do you balance that as you working on people, good people, bad people. I know you're not, you don't, you don't judge them, but sometimes you may get a little history of who you're working on, and you treat them as the same as someone else.
Well, I think that, we all, I mean, you can't say you don't judge. Everybody judges.
Mm-hmm.
It's a part of just who we are, how we've been brought up, whatever. I mean, they've proven time and again that, a culture is going to, we can say that there are certain people groups, but I've done mission trips, and I find that there are always people groups that, the majority doesn't like or whatever. But
Right.
I think there's that. But I think that, to me, the challenge, and I think this is what you try, as a Christian you should try to do, is basically don't look at them through your eyes. Look at them through Jesus's eyes, and I think that, also kind of be more objective of what kind of problem do they have, what kind of needs do they have, what can you do to fix what they have and the needs they have, patch them up to get them down the road, kind of work within the situation they have.
Mm-hmm.
The crisis is real to them, and certain times it's going to be something that's going to forever change their world. And so you got to work within that. One thing that I think that really kind of influenced my life a lot, when I was 12, my stepfather, my stepbrother, and my half-brother were all in a horrible car wreck. That gremlin looked like somebody took aluminum foil and just scrunched it.
Mm-hmm.
And they all were in the hospital for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it was totally disrupting to our family.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's something that I learned about that. I think I learned that we all have to do our part to keep the family going and to take care of each other. And so I kind of got exposed to medicine in some interesting ways with that. And I think it kind of helped prepare me. But then in college, one of my advisors said, you need some hospital experience. Well, I'd never really had any hospital experience, but the local doctor was kind of a mentor, and I could ask him a lot of questions. And what I thought was really fascinating, when I got in med school, I realized that he had been teaching me things. Just one phrase that he had, I remember I'm sitting in lecture in neurology, and all of a sudden I heard this phrase, and I was like, I don't have to hear that again. I know where it came from. But it put it in context. When he said it, he was just saying it. But I remembered hearing it, and so I walked out of the lecture already having that, where other classmates were having to put it together. Try to remember that phrase. I thought, what a strange phrase. Why is he doing, I thought, this guy's bonkers. It's kind of a weird phrase, kind of funny, whatever. But looking forward, he had actually taught me something that carried forward. And so they said, well, you need some hospital experience. And you know me, I'm not somebody who's not afraid to talk to people and maybe do things. And so I went to the local emergency department and asked if I could watch. Now, these days, this would never, ever even come close to flying. But there was a great doctor there that night. He said, come on. And so basically, he took me under his wing, and I got to be there that night. And he said, I won't be here tomorrow night, but my wife will. And I'll let you come watch with her. And he saw the interest and everything. And the weekend went well until Monday morning, and the head nurse for the department called me and said, you can't do this. You're done. Can't do this. Well, I already had applications in for a job. And I don't think we have enough time to really talk to how I could see God working through the process of how I got the job. Which it's a very sad story, but I'll just move forward and say I got the job, and I spent like 3 years working in an emergency department before even med school. And I still, even going to med school, I kind of wanted to be a family doc. I wanted to do family medicine. But I found through everything, through the different rotations and everything else, that the emergency department just kept pulling me back.
Mm.
And I did spend a month with a great doctor in Ballinger, Texas, a Dr. Green. He was close to retirement, but we had a deal that you could stay, and I actually stayed in his house with him for a month and saw patients with him, went to the office every day. When he went for his evening jog, I did that. I mean, basically, I lived with him for a month. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of funny because he even said, yeah, this is kind of boring for you. But at the same time, the most fun I had the entire month, we went to the operating once, and we had another deal we did. He got called in one night because a guy took a chainsaw to his leg. And it wasn't anything that we couldn't fix. It's just that it was going to require some time that evening. Mm-hmm. And I had a blast. And he was kind of like, yeah, you're not really family medicine. But it was a process of discovery. And I couldn't possibly thank him enough for the fact that he gave me that opportunity to see what his world was like. Mm-hmm. Because by living that for a month, I was like, yeah, this is not for me. And I think sometimes people go down paths and don't have that experience to say this is for me or this is not. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was wonderful. But I found that that's what I really wanted to do, what I was going to do, and I think in many ways what God called me. I mean, God got me through med school. There's no way I could have done it on my own. Mm-hmm. I'm not a good test taker. They freak me out. I get afraid. But I would, before each exam, I'd just stop and pray. And most of my classmates are scrambling for every spare minute, and I'm saying, no, God, if I'm getting through this, you're doing it. And I just needed to, it was kind of a way of just calming down and getting rid of the jitters and then doing the task in front of me. But, medical school was not a sprint, it was a marathon.
Right.
And so every day you got to study, you got to get after the books, you got to learn, you got to try to ask questions and find out, and do I understand this, and can I apply it and move forward? And God got me through that. And at the time I had no reason why. I didn't understand, and I still don't know what God's going to do with me, but He's done a lot of great things, and I've really enjoyed it. Yeah. It's cool getting to be used by God.
I know one of the places that you used to work at or did residency, whatever, it was in a place called Houston, Texas.
Yep.
And it was a place called Ben Taub.
No, I didn't work at Ben Taub.
Ben Taub? Okay.
I worked at Herman. I worked with Red Duke.
Okay, Red Duke. Okay.
Yeah. And I was on Red Duke's trauma service as a fourth-year student. And then I came back after residency, and I worked at Houston for a year because they had a new emergency medicine program. Mm-hmm. And so I worked with Red Duke as staff.
Intriguing young man, huh?
Yeah. From the University of Texas Health Science Center, I'm Dr. Red Duke. He's large.
Uh-huh.
It was one thing that in fact, my daughter's given me a book written about him. I haven't read it yet. I know it's bad, mm-hmm. but I'm going to. I will read it. But there's been some interesting things in his life. I mean, I understand there's some religious background for him, some ministerial background. Mm-hmm. And so, he's got his, every human being has their pros and cons. Mm-hmm. But I think the one thing I learned from him is he definitely cared about what the patients were feeling, mm-hmm. what was going on. And, make no bones about it, if you weren't on that team, you were in trouble.
Wow.
Patients first, and you take care of them. Yeah. And that's one big lesson. I think another lesson I carry with him that I just, he was just funny in just so many ways. But I noticed that, and this is something I've tried to model the rest of my life, is that when he would go through the hospitals, I mean, I'm talking 2 a.m, he always greeted everybody. He may not know exactly who they are, but he, mm-hmm. he would greet everybody. And I know there's this, and I think in some ways he kind of liked the notoriety, and in some ways he didn't. And I could see both. Mm-hmm. Trust me, I could understand that there's some good, some bad. But at the same time, one of the things, I'm still tickled. We were walking through the team and everything, and there was a phlebotomist walking by. And he knew her by name, and he called her out and everything, and we walked on. And he goes, he said something like, she can draw blood from a rock. He's seen her in action and like, you need blood drawn, she can do it. And it was that's one of those times that, a great compliment for her. She didn't hear it because she was down the hall,
Right.
and he probably wasn't going to say it to her face, but he's like, she can do it.
She'll find those veins. If not, she
can
puts
get
them in
blood out
there
of
and
a
then
rock.
get it out of there.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. But I really do appreciate you stopping by. I know you're a very busy person, and you had time, Lisa, to come share your story of and this is not the end of it. This is just a volume of your story thus far. And I really do appreciate that. I thank Cheryl, for allowing this young man to come this direction. Because I know they probably could be eating out somewhere or doing something.
We ate out
together.
before we came in.
Oh, okay, they ate out before they came in. Okay, well, they.
Well, I appreciate you. I think it's been fun getting to know you. I think it's fun that you stretch me and I stretch you, and
Yes.
it's been good. I really appreciate that. You're like, well, I don't know if I want to shoot this, but I guess I'll try it.
Oh yes.
And then you're like, hey, yeah, this is fun. I like this. Or just the different things that we deal with that are just different. Where we grew up, what we did. You're a big Belton Tigers fan, and I don't know, but
Well, I'll put it this way. He bought me a mask recently, and it's from this certain NFL team, and
the blue one with the star and.
and he said, and he had the audacity to say, I found this on the discount rack. Buy one, get one free. So he gave it to me. I'm like, wow.
But it wasn't to hurt your feelings about your team or anything. It was more of I thought about you because I saw it, and I thought, heck yeah, I'll buy it for you. And this time, everybody's needing masks, so I thought you could use it.
And I got a bucket with the emblem on there. And then he bought
That
me
was full price.
and then he bought me a nightlight. I said, man, you think I'm scary or something? He said, yes.
And unfortunately, and like I said, I don't. That's not my team, but that team does have my favorite quarterback.
Yes.
Because I remember when he started for this team, when he was drafted or whatever that process is. But when he started with them, there was an article about him, and he said he was the best in the class. And I went, whoa, that's like taking and painting a target on yourself. There are going to be some defensive guys just trying to break your neck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also saying you're telling the other quarterbacks that you're better than they are, and they're going to be out to get you too.
Yeah.
And I thought, that says something about that young man. Either he's arrogant or he's sure of himself. And the arrogance over time will prove if he's not all that.
Right.
But if he's really that kind of person who believes in himself and can have those leadership skills and carry that forward. And so I started watching him. And unfortunately, he broke his leg. But, oh, my gosh, that, and he's one of those people I'm like, how in the heck did the rest of the NFL not see this guy? Why didn't they take him? Why was he not a high draft pick? And, and so there are people like that just don't always stick out, and they may have taken it as saying, well, this guy's arrogant and you're not gonna prove it. Well, he proved it on the field.
Yeah.
And so he's been my favorite quarterback. I really liked Brett Favre before that. I don't like Green Bay. Don't get me. I'm not a Green Bay fan.
But you like Brett Favre.
But the reason I like Brett Favre is because I was watching some game, and he was on the sidelines because the defense was on the field, and he has still his helmet on. He's in his gear, and he's talking to the coaches, whatever, and he's standing on the sidelines. And the other team gets a breakaway and is coming down the sidelines and look like they're going to score. And Brett Favre tucked his head and was about to get them. Mm-hmm. And he didn't know. I mean, you could tell he didn't know the cameras are watching him or whatever. He almost broke the barrier, got on the field and tackled the guy. And he was just in the moment of they're not going to score on me.
Yeah.
And fortunately, the safety got in and took the guy out. But Brett Favre was almost in on the tackle, and he's offense.
Yeah.
And so I said, now that's a competitor.
Yeah.
And so that's why he, in many ways, was my favorite quarterback up before this other guy that we're not supposed to talk about that works for the Cowboys named.
Well, I didn't like this other quarterback. Since we're talking about that before we close out, because he always beat my team all the time, and He's got a G on his helmet. That's all I'm gonna say. And he would always beat my team. I don't know how, but he always pull it out. And he throws sidearm. I can put it that way. And throw it 60, 70 miles. 60, 70 yards sidearm. And he's good. And he's got a commercial. And so I look at him and I say, just like, UK, as long as you don't play my team. But you got to
respect your enemies, even though
they good.
You know.
Yes. I really do. It's awesome. So I really do appreciate that. I thank you for coming and hanging out with us again. Now, as you look into the camera, and if you want to close us out with the word of prayer, I would appreciate that.
Heavenly Father, I come to you this evening, and I just pray that if there's somebody out here that's listening that needs to come to a conversation with you, that if they need to meet you, this is their time. And we can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow or the next hour or the next day. But I just pray if they don't have a relationship with you, we know that you are always facing them, that you're always listening to them, that you will always be there for them. They just have to basically turn their attention to you. That you were here long before we came, and you'll be here long after. Mm-hmm. But I just pray if they need that reassurance, if they're concerned about what happens when they die, that you're there. And I just pray that they'll reach to you. I pray for this church. I pray for our pastor, for the many things that he has going on and the things that he does and for his ministry. And I pray for the members of this church, and I pray for our local community, and for the people that are ill, for the people who need help. This virus has caused so much disruption in so many different ways, and I just pray that you're there and will answer when they call, and let's get through this. And I pray for our nation at this difficult time. We have so many things that are distressing so many people, and I just pray that you're still in charge and going to take control. And I know ultimately, the world is a fallen place, that this is not the way that this is not the master blueprint. Mm-hmm. That when you created the earth, that we were supposed to be able to walk with you in the evening in the garden and talk with you. But human beings broke all that. We've sinned and we're fallen. But someday we will be able to walk and talk with you. Someday in eternity after we die, that we'll be able to do that. But I pray that you'll be with our nation in this time and the many things that are distressing and fearing. People are being afraid. But I pray for our nation. I pray for the leaders that we have and the leaders that we're going to get. And I just pray that you will guide them and direct them as a nation, one nation under God. There is no comma in our pledge. It's one nation under God. Yes. It's not one nation, pause, under God. Because our founding fathers said that's who we are. And they took this great experiment and said, we're going to make this work. And I think we've done a great job with it, and I just hope that our future's bright as well. All these things I pray in your Son's precious name, name above all names, Emmanuel, Jesus, bright and morning star, wonderful counselor, Prince of Peace. There are so many names that we give you, but we love you, and we thank you for all the things that you've done for us. All these things I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for joining us at New Day Fellowship Church, a growing church, new vision for a multicultural generation. So we thank you for joining us. Also, tune in 8 a.m. on Sunday, and then 10 a.m. on Sunday also. So it's 2 services back-to-back. Would you be ministering this coming Sunday? Okay. Dr. Russell will be ministering this coming Sunday at 8 a.m. Catch us on the channel you're on right now. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. And we're on our own channel. So catch us. He's a hoot. Really, he's exciting. God bless you. Love you. Bye.